I know. I haven't had it done, but I've heard.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order, October 23rd, 2019, and I would ask everyone to anthem. Director, would you please take roll call?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our meeting of 23 October 2019. Trustee Barry.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Danaher.
Present.
Trustee Jacobs.
Present.
Vice Chair McPherson.
Present.
Chair McAllister.
Present.
Trustee McCray.
Present.
Trustee McDonald. Trustee Schooler. Trustee Parisian.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Colton Kelford.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you, Director. I have a motion moved by Trustee Jacobs and seconded by Trustee Barry that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 5.02, 5.03, October 23rd, 2019, as submitted. Please cast your vote. That motion carries. Are there any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing none, Director, I will turn this over to you for a few comments if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do indeed. We spend a lot of time in our important work of working with students in schools to make sure that we're connecting with the right people that's going to enable the outcomes that we desire for our students in our schools. So since my last report to the board, we've been connecting with staff, connecting with labor groups, connecting with community, and soon to be connecting with a group of parents, and I want to tell you just a bit more about that. So, Mr. Chair, the board has a new teacher induction program, and it's under the care of Superintendent Loshaw. And we had our first meeting with these new teachers. It's a program that's province-wide, mandated by the Ministry of Education, with a great deal of practicality around that, making sure that teachers are paired with mentors as they start their new journey in a new career, that they are receiving some insight and support about how we're trying to lead the system in instruction and in assessment and evaluation, and also to build a network of like-minded people who are also in the same stage in their career development. So we know it was a productive day this past week. As well, we make connections with our labor groups, Mr. Chair, at a number of different levels. At one level, in the director's office, it's one-to-one meetings that are held quarterly with the different labor executives, and those are always productive meetings. We get a chance to compare notes about what are the big topics that we're mutually trying to address, and what resources do our labor groups have at their disposal to help maybe move something forward, and what resources does the board have to help move those things forward when we have some common ground. I have a few more of those meetings scheduled for the rest of this month, but they've been very productive, and it's because we do value our local labor relationships, and we know that that when we work together, it only means good things for our students. Another example of that is the Initiatives Committee, and that's a committee that all school boards have that involves their senior staff and the executive group of the labor groups in the local vicinity. And that discussion is making sure that each side knows what are some of the drivers in relation to their mandate for doing their work this year. So, Mr. Chair, as you might imagine, one of the things that we bring forward in these discussions is about the board's work plan and the director's work plan. And we recapped where we were at the end of the year and what our successes were. We also talked about some key initiatives that we were addressing this year in the area of special education and in other areas for sure. We heard from our labor groups that they continue to be invested in anti-poverty education and anti-poverty reduction strategies. We're certainly on the same side on that one for sure, knowing that we all agree that a good education is one of the best anti-poverty reduction strategies that a community could ever ask for. So we see some sites where we can collaborate there as well. A connection with the community was a meeting that I had with our co-terminus board's director and the chief medical officer of health for the Eastern Ontario region, Dr. Paul Remoliotis. And we were talking about a couple of things that's of interest to us that I'll be bringing back to the senior staff in the near future. One of them is, how do schools support the Smoke-Free Ontario legislation that is imposed on all public spaces in the province, including schools and school grounds. And as you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges that have come into communities is about the challenge of electronic cigarettes or vaping. And so Dr. Remoliotis was asking about how are we trying to address that from a school operation and management perspective in our two respective school boards. He was giving some advice to us about how the health unit is tasked with enforcement, but more importantly around prevention. And so we have some areas where we can follow up there as well. And then lastly, connecting with parents, I would want to remind people, Mr. Chair, that the board's first parent involvement committee meeting, which is an advisory group that gives advice and insight to the board itself, unlike how school councils work with principals. Their first meeting is going to be on Monday, November 4th, right here at the board office. And some members of the board may recall Trustee Schooler's presentation at the last board meeting about how the parent involvement committee is aligned with the board's objectives and certainly aligned with making sure that our students are successful. So we'll look forward to Mr. Schooler bringing back some insights from that meeting on November 4th, but I wanted to remind people that it's on the docket. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. I only have two comments. One is I want to acknowledge the fact that Monday was election day, and that I extend my congratulations, and I'm sure on behalf of all the board, to all the candidates who participated in the election, but in particular, a special note of congratulations to our returning MPs, Mr. Reid, Mr. Drouin, and Mr. Barrett, and Mr. Duncan, who is a new member. As you know, I've made it my mission over this past year and to meet all our MPPs and our MPs to promote the cause of public education and to instill public confidence in this board in particular. And pursuant to the director's comments, where he was talking about the medical officer of health's concern about vaping, that is one of the issues that we discussed with both Mr. Barrett and Mr. Clark. So I just wanted to point that out. The second one is, second item I'd like to mention is that tomorrow, October the 24th, is Go Purple Day, Dress Purple Day, and it's a special day involving it's a campaign by various family and children's services in our district, as well as agencies across Ontario. And the campaign is held every October, which is recognized as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And there are quite a number of resources on the website, which is, I think, in the board minutes here or the board agenda. So I'm very pleased to say that our board will be participating in the Gopher. So that concludes my remarks. So we are now moving on to the Ted Kennedy Legacy Awards, item 10.01, the Terry Fox Challenge. And Director, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is always a proud moment for our board when this agenda item is on the agenda each fall. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Perry in just a moment, who will acknowledge the award winners. Why we make sure that this has face time with the board and with the public as part of the agenda is showing that the schools that we have in Upper Canada are committed to contributing to the focus on curing cancer and on cancer research. The Terry Fox Foundation is a very accessible, very relatable experience for our students who understands what does it mean for one person to champion a cause, and how it has for more than 30 years been a rallying point for our schools and for all Canadians across Canada. It becomes also a moment of pride for our schools to be able to focus their time and attention and resources on things that are larger than themselves. And because of that, we want to celebrate not only what all of our schools are doing, but what in particular two specific schools have achieved, and want to spend some time focusing on that tonight. So I'll turn it over to Superintendent Perry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the recipients of the Ted Kennedy Award this evening. But before doing so, I would like to simply say that all of our schools have participated very actively in the Terry Fox Run. And in the last school year, so this presentation this evening is for the 2018 school year. The Upper Canada District School Board, schools within the district, raised a total of $88,096.52 for the Terry Fox Foundation. And since its inception of having Terry Fox runs in our schools, a total of $1,437,006.21 has been raised by students across the Upper Canada District School Board. So the Ted Kennedy Award is given to the school or schools, an elementary and a secondary school, that has the highest per student gathering of funds for the Terry Fox Run. And so it's a little bit of a legacy as well, because it's the same two schools that were represented here last year for the award. And this evening we have Athens High School represented by Principal Dave Peer and Vice Principal Laura Oliver. So I would like to present them with the plaque and recognize the efforts in their school. The elementary school that is being recognized this evening, the teacher who was responsible for organizing the run at the school, Robin Mohammed, and Principal Janet Galately were not able to be with us this evening. So as the superintendent for that school, and proud as I am of the school for continuing their efforts, I would like to accept the award on their behalf, and I will make sure that that is represented in their community shortly. Thank you very much.
Director, you might want to elaborate on the Legacy Award itself. And
Yes.
who it's named after.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we would be remiss if we didn't make the connection to why we honor the event, the Terry Fox Foundation event, using Mr. Kennedy's name and citing him as this legacy. So Ted Kennedy was a superintendent with the Upper Canada School Board, and before that, a very well-respected music educator and principal, vice principal, and teacher in a board in Dufferin County before he arrived at Upper Canada. And was before he passed away I believe in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, that he had really created a strong sense of community, stood for causes that the community would be able to identify with and stand with him, and was a well-respected member of this school board, sat at this table for many years. So it's with profound respect that we recognize Mr. Kennedy each year through the efforts of what our students do for others. So I just want to make sure that, especially since we have a new board and it might be information that is not immediately recognizable to them, I hope that we can make that connection for you and honor Mr. Kennedy's name and why we're here this evening, recognizing him in this report.
Ed Kennedy and Terry Fox are two gentlemen whose achievements illustrate very well the power of one. Moving on to 1101, which is the report of the Special Education Advisory and Advisory Committee, and turn this over to.
Thank you. Our SEAC committee met on the 5th of October, 2019 in the boardroom here. The summary in front of you really does not surmise the meeting very well. We had a full house that night, which was extremely unusual for SEAC, in that I would dare say there was 15 to 20 people simply attended voluntarily, largely because of some of the subject matter that we were discussing, and no doubt, in no small part, to their dedication to the students that we serve. Our first presenters were from Autism Ontario, and that strangely started out as a request to attend to observe. Superintendent Ferguson and I decided to turn around and turn it into an opportunity to learn about a new development in the delivery of autism services in Ontario, and in turn asked these people to present instead. They are the navigators or the facilitators for the new autism program. Essentially what happens is families are referred to them, and then they refer them to the available services. Haley Stolarchuk, representing the eastern part of the board, and Kelsey McDaniel, representing the western portion. The next presentation was given by two of our staff people from Central Public School and Bridgewood Public School, Perry Cronwall and Jennifer Perry. They brought enough staff with them in support of this presentation to fill the back of the room, which, as a member of SEAC, it's quite, actually feels pretty good. And we discussed the new PUP programs, Power Up programming, again, aimed at our higher needs students, and hopefully to be able to access a slightly different funding model for spec ed services. We do have parallel programs in 2 other schools, and we hope to hear from them in the future. The last part was simply an acknowledgement that no longer were students' names going to be put on the backs of special ed equipment, but simply a barcode that somebody could read to determine who it's assigned to and not. Apparently there was a small concern, is that the senior name on the back of the computer, they knew you were special needs. So our next meeting will be November 5th, 2019, in the boardroom here at 6:30. All are welcome to attend. Have to be remiss if I didn't thank student trustee Bolton Kelford from showing up and observing the meeting, and I think we sent him home with homework, but I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Trustees, do you have any questions of this report? Seeing none, we will be moving to item 1201, Supervised Alternative Learning 2018-2019, the annual report. And I guess I'll turn this to you, Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, This is an annual report that's brought to the board, Mr. Chair, and the purpose of the report is to provide details on the school board's efforts to provide programming that is highly specialized for a concentrated group of students who have exhausted most of the avenues or opportunities that we might offer during the regular day school system. Provide a connection to or purposeful learning program that they are invested in that will continue to cause them to attend daily. What you'll hear in the report is that the lengths that the school district goes in order to try to make sure that we can keep students in schools, even when there are some significant life circumstances that complicates their efforts to attend regularly and to achieve credit outcomes. So I'll turn that over to Superintendent Rudders and Mr. Lewis, and then we'll see if there's any questions after the presentation.
Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to be here to provide the annual report on our supervised alternative learning program, and a pleasure also to have Don Lewis, our Safe Schools principal, join me. Don is an important part of the SAL committee of the board and certainly instrumental in the organization of our referral process and our tracking of students. So our mission, as always, we prepare all students for a successful life. And I really believe that the SAL Supervised Alternative Learning Program is a really important mechanism for our ability to do so. It's a mechanism that allows us to support the preparation of some of our most vulnerable students on their journey to a successful life. And SAL serves the needs of a small group of students who require something different in terms of their educational programming to increase their achievement, to help them maintain a connection to education and learning in some way, shape, or form, and ultimately increase the likelihood of graduating. So what is SAL? SAL is covered through the Ontario Regulation 374, Supervised Alternative Learning under the Educational Act, and other excusals from attendance at school. It enables students who are 14 to 17 years of age to be excused from attending school for a period of time while they continue to participate in learning in some other way. And it's intended to be used for a very small segment of the population, as I mentioned earlier, and only when other measures to continue to engage the student in a learning experience at the regular school or in some of our alternative school locations have not been effective or successful. And the purpose is really and ultimately to help our students through a period of time where they are having that difficulty to maintain their engagement in some form of learning, and so that ultimately they can return either to a school or move forward to a post-secondary pathway, apprenticeship, training, college, university, or the world of work. So who comprises the SAL committee of the board? The superintendent, and in my case, as superintendent responsible for alternative learning, I've been given this position. The designate to the superintendent and the committee is Don Lewis, our principal of Safe Schools, and in the event that I'm not able to attend, Don would certainly chair the meeting, and as I said before, he's also instrumental in the preparation of the materials, the receipt of the applications, and the communications around our SAL students. Trustee Donald Cram is a veteran of the SAL committee with the board and continues in that role. And we have a community representative, Annette Lauinger, who is an employee of Lauren Crest Youth Services and brings a real wealth of understanding and empathy for students who require our support at difficult points in their life. So who are the students we serve in SAL? This pyramid of interventions, I think, is a really good illustration of the ways in which we can support students to find success as learners in our board. And when you look at the bottom level, the prevention strategies for all students are really what we offer every day in our classrooms in our schools. And that's good teaching. It's a caring, supportive adult, or many caring, supporting adults, and a supportive and engaging learning experiences. From time to time, we see students who may need somewhat of an intervention to be able to continue to find success. And so we have in-class and in-school interventions. That could be in the form of teachers contacting and working closely with parents, student success teachers becoming involved, referrals to our student success team meetings where we really strategize together as school teams to how best to support a student. It could involve our guidance department, and it also our principals and vice principals are certainly directly involved. In some cases, that's the level of intervention that helps us find the student or helps us support the student to find success. In other cases, we may need to move to a different level of intervention at the board level, and that could be a specialized program for a time, such as a system-designated class. It could be a referral to our transitions program at TR Leger for grade 9 and 10 students who require an alternative setting. Foundations, similar, but for grade 11 and 12 students. It often will involve the involvement of our special services counselors, who are also a great way to connect students and families to community services and resources that they may need. And then at the very top of our pyramid of interventions is supervised alternative learning. And it's for a very few number of students and for use only when all of those other interventions that I've spoken of have been exhausted. And so while you look at the struggles represented on the right-hand side of the slide, they may be struggles of any of our students at any given time, but in some cases, the impact of those struggles are so great that our best efforts for a time are not sufficient to engage the student in continued learning at the school level. And so SAL provides the opportunity to make a connection for these students to some kind of learning plan in the community often, while they still maintain connection to their home school. And the goals of SAL are outlined here, again, to maintain that connection to learning with the support of a caring adult. And a school person is designated, a school staff member is designated, and that check-in occurs on a monthly basis as the minimum. Continued progress to graduation or the pursuit of other educational or personal goals are certainly a part of a SAL plan. We want to offer a program under a SAL plan that's in the student's best interest, but most importantly, reflects his or her input and supports the student in meeting the goals that they've helped to identify for themselves. Without the student's input and buy-in, we really run little chance of success in terms of the intervention. And we want to keep our students in a SAL plan connected to home schools. We want them where their interest lies to participate in extracurricular programs, because our ultimate goal is to enable a smooth transition when they return and when they are ready to return. So how does it work? So the school-based team is led by the principal, supported very much by the special services counselors, who often have been involved with some of our students in this particular pathway for several years. They collaborate with the student, with the parent. They try and determine what are the interests and what could the plan look like, and seek that engagement and interest. An application is forwarded to the SAL committee of the board. We meet monthly to review the application, and we always invite the principal, the student, and the parent, and any members of the school-based team who are involved in the support of the SAL plan or the development of it. And we really hear what the plan is about and how the student and the folks involved believe it will be in the best interest of the student. If approved, the SAL plan is implemented, and it's monitored on a regular basis from then until the end of the school year. And at the end of the year, there's a couple of things that can happen. The student can decide that they're prepared and ready to return to the homeschool environment, and that's certainly always our goal. The student may request to return to a school environment, but perhaps it's one of our alternative settings, as in TR Leger Foundations, and that's also a viable and very well-supported pathway. Or they may request to return and continue in the SAL program, the SAL plan that they have established, and that would come to the board come to the SAL committee for approval, and a student could continue in a SAL program for no more than 2 consecutive years. The other thing is we may see students who are prepared and ready and have achieved what they need to do to move into the world of work or to move into post-secondary placements and jobs. So in terms of our data for 2018-19, in the first semester, we saw 7 students who engaged in or were approved to participate in a supervised alternative learning plan. 2 of those students were referred from TR Leger sites, and 5 of them were referred from mainstream sites, secondary schools in the board. In second semester, we had a total of 9 students approved to participate, 5 from mainstream and 4 from TR Leger. And in terms of age distribution, as I had mentioned earlier, SAL plans can be created for students between the ages of 14 and 17. Our SAL students last year were in the age range from 15 to 17, and you'll see represented here 4 15-year-olds, 7 16-year-olds, and 5 17-year-olds. So when students are participating in SAL, they can be doing a variety of different things, and maybe several of the things represented here, depending on their interest and depending on their identified needs. And so, again, that just reemphasizes the importance of the student voice in developing the SAL plan, because they really need to own it, and it really needs to be responsive to where they are and the skills and competencies that they need to develop to continue and be successful. And so the areas where work, and we had many students, as you'll see represented in green, in the areas of work. Many are engaging in some form of counseling, some are volunteering, and there's a variety of training and skills development that are represented in purple on the slide, and that might be job training through a federal or provincial job zone opportunity. That might be recognized certifications. It could be a youth justice program. It could be employee training at a job or a co-op. So there's a variety of different things represented in the training skills development slide. And so our credit summary for the supervised alternative learning last year, we had 7 students who began a SAL program in semester 1, and by the end of the year, those 7 students earned 22 credits. We had 9 students who began a SAL program in semester 2, and those students earned 15 credits in total by the end of the school year. And I think that this represents a really positive story for our students, given that without this opportunity for a different approach to a learning plan, we really feel that it's very likely that these students would have had limited, if not no, credit attainment for the year. So it's a very good news story for these particular students. So in closing, we prepare all students for a successful life. We come back to that. It is our mission. And I think that supervised alternative learning really helps us get to the all of that. And it's a very important tool to support the success and well-being of a very small number of vulnerable students for a short period of time until they're once again able to re-engage as learners. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, both Dawn and I would be happy to do our best to answer.
Thank you, Superintendent Rudders. Trustee Cram, would you like to, as trustee on that committee, would you care to start us off?
Thank you, Chair. No question, but I must commend Superintendent Rudders and Principal Lewis for a very thorough presentation, particularly seeing that the administrative staff turned over this particular year. Both of them have only been on duty for 2 months with SAL, and they're presenting you the statistics from last year where they weren't involved. So they've done a tremendous job in going back and getting those stats, and I commend them for that. The other thing was on one of the slides had the 5 progression stages of how to apply, and the last one, of course, said the student was free to apply at the end of the year for the next year. We had a meeting in September, which is our first meeting of the year, of which neither administrative person that involved in SALs from last year, and they were making recommendations based on what happened last year. So they've done a tremendous job, and I appreciate the work they've done with us.
I have one. Could you tell me what a SAL plan looks like for a typical student?
Interesting that we have Sandy McKinnis, principal of TR, because we're meeting with the student in the Lanark area the other day to help design a plan. This is a student who struggles in terms of being able to work in a mainstream school and also in a TR setting. So right now, this taking a look at one of the main interests that the student has, both currently and in thinking of in terms of post-secondary. crafting a plan that will tie some of the credits that he needs to earn, and that towards getting his grade 12, and tying some of those expectations to, he has an interest in the fashion industry, so taking a look at elements of the English curriculum and the math curriculum that could be tied to that. And then as well as trying to connect with some work experience that he's currently undertaking in the community. There's a school staff member who's tied to him directly, who will be monitoring his progress and connecting both with the job connection that he has, as well as with the student and his parents, and his mother, sorry. Right now we're looking on a bi-weekly basis as we get the plan going. So the plan has to be presented to the committee, and sometimes there'll be some questions as to whether or not the plan is thorough enough. And if it's not thorough enough, then it is referred back to the school with the principal and the special services counselor. We did have one back in September that we asked for them to strengthen it a little bit, and then it was presented again in October, and at that point it was approved, given that the additional components that we wanted to see in the plan were incorporated into.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're going to have to dig into your history books for the answer to this one. But I previously sat on the SALEP committee, which is quite similar to this. And back then, a successful report was no report. In other words, we considered it as a success that we did not have to refer anybody to SALEP. Now it has gone in the other direction, and I would be sorely disappointed if you weren't helping somebody. So what has changed in the administration of this program? Because it is still very similar in its outcome and its method, but what has changed that it is now actually helping more students rather than not, so to speak?
Through you, Chair, I can certainly, as coming into this role new this year, I've been doing a little bit of reading and trying to kind of determine some of the workings of it. I believe there may be other colleagues around the table who have even greater experience than I am who can add to my answer. But my understanding is that the program changed around 2011, 2012 to become more responsive to the needs of students. That there's an indication that from a graduation rate point of view, from a success point of view, is that we needed to become more flexible, provide more a variety of opportunities, because we really had folks and students that needed our support in a different way than what our past models may have been. So that's my understanding, is that the new guidelines came down and they were much broader in terms of the strategies we could implement to provide students with a pathway and a connection to learning. So I'm not sure whether anybody else would like to.
Third question. What is the graduation rate of students in the SAL program?
I honestly, do not have that information at my fingertips, but I'm certainly willing to have a look. Don, do you have any evidence of that?
Through you, Chair, there was one student last year who was in their grade 12 year who achieved 6 credits. Those were his final credits to get him to the 30 credit mark. Some of the students are not necessarily in their final year, so for some of them, it's really, as Superintendent Rudders indicated earlier, that it's really ideally what the plan is for them to be able to reintegrate back into either their mainstream school or into their TR setting to finish off the 30 credits. So right now we have one student this year who could potentially be moving towards graduation, given that they're in their grade 12 year.
Thank you, Chair. To add further to that, because this is my 5th year on SAL, it would probably be better to say if we could forget the ministry definition of graduation rate, because many of these students will graduate before the age of 21, but not necessarily in the 14 to 17 or 18-year stage. So our goal with SAL is keep them involved in school so that they can graduate and can get an OSSD.
Is it within your role to offer a high school credit for, say, example, this student that is interested in fashion? They were to go out and get a cooperative job with someone who was offering some skills, is it within your role to negotiate with somebody to get a credit for that?
Through you, Chair. In several ways, certainly through the cooperative education credit itself for the work placement. As well, we have some leeway with regards to looking at expectations from courses that we can pull together to grant credit on that, and that. So there's two kind of pathways for that, but most definitely, and that is our effort, and I think that is part of what happened in the new iteration of From Sail Up to Sell, was the opportunity to do just some of those kind of things, to be more flexible in terms of credit attainment.
Say that, because I've been quite taken with this document that's the vision, the student vision for Education Ontario. And one of their recommendations is that this sort of special education have the flexibility to offer high school credits more than perhaps we're doing. And it strikes me as an innovative way for some students who may have trouble in conventional settings to get some feeling of self-worth. And it sounds good. Sounds good.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, Superintendent Rudders. I appreciate your presentation. Moving on to the Upper Canada Summer Learning Program and summer semester 2019. And I will turn this over to the director as well.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, we're going to ask Superintendent Rudders to stay, and then we'll be populating the back of the bench there with Superintendent Lowshaw, Principal McMaster, and Principal McInnes. This is another annual report we bring to the board as a reminder that the board's resources go beyond the September to June commitment of the regular day school program to include summer learning for elementary students and summer semester for our secondary students. Both are completely voluntary. There's no obligation or requirement for students to participate in these programs, and yet they prove to be very vital for the students who are part of that, and it also happens to be a positive growth experience for our staff who are part of those programs as well. So I'll turn it over to Superintendent Lowshaw and Rudders, who will walk us through tonight's presentation, and we'll see if there's any questions from the board after that.
Great. Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chair, we're very pleased tonight to be able to provide an update on the two programs that our director just mentioned, the Summer Learning Program and Summer Semester as well. We see these programs as being very well connected to our board's mission, which of course is to prepare all students for a successful life. The Summer Learning Program is funded by CODE, the Council of Directors of Education, and of course offered at various sites throughout our board. It is offered, the elementary program is offered for students in grade 1, 2, and 3, and focuses on skill development in the areas of literacy, numeracy, and healthy living. Throughout the course this past summer, then the program was offered from July 8th to July 26th at 8 sites across the district, serving 86 students under the guidance of 16 teachers and 2 supervising principals. The principals were Dominic Bertrand and Principal Jen McMaster, who is here with us this evening, and she's going to share more detail.
Losha, and thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to talk about our summer learning program. Our program provides 45 hours of literacy and numeracy, as well as 15 hours of healthy living through our 3 weeks. There was a strong focus on coding in our district last year, and the summer learning program provided extra opportunities for students to learn with the many resources that we put into our schools. In the picture on the right, you see students learning with our B-Bots, which were purchased through the summer learning program in 2017. It also allows for teacher capacity building in using coding to address and look at literacy and numeracy with our students. Our healthy living focuses on outdoor education, and teachers are provided a budget for nutritious snacks. Site teachers use a variety of methods such as social media to engage parents and families and keep them informed of activities and foci. And our communications department did a great job of traveling to the sites this summer to update our learning on our website and on our social media platforms. Many of our students visited partners and businesses within their community, which raises our profile, but also helps build community partnerships. And the resources that we're able to provide schools are rich, research-based tools that educators use for years. This year, each school received a Fontes and Pinnell guided reading kit collection, which is a 200 titles for educators to use to facilitate our district's focus on guided practice, which is a high-yield strategy that we're encouraging teachers to use. And this program is instrumental in teaching teachers to use the practice of guided practice. To gather program feedback and to ensure we hear the voices of our parents, we survey parents at the end of the 3-week program. This year, 100% of our parents agreed that we provide safe and caring environments for our students. 100% rated the level of engagement that their child participated in or experienced in a summer learning program as high. And 100% agreed that the summer learning program offers opportunities to build literacy, numeracy, and healthy living skills and understanding. Teachers are also surveyed to determine the strengths of the program and to guide us in our next steps for next year's program. Teachers overwhelmingly report that the benefits of the summer learning program are learning skills such as participation, self-regulation, self-assessment, goal setting, engagement, and our literacy, numeracy, and healthy living skills. And some of the benefits that teachers report about the program and in terms of building teacher capacity are assessment practices, individualized programming, co-planning with colleagues, and building partnerships with parents. Students cite reading, math, computer time, and their teachers as some of their favorite parts of the summer learning program. And from our reading diagnostics, we had 86% of our students improve their reading skills by 1 level, 54% of our students went up by 2 levels, and a number of our students went up by 4 to 6 levels. Specific to numeracy, we noted that the number of students who used the less efficient skill of counting all was reduced by 70%, while the skill of making tens saw a 40% gain. The summer learning program helps increase achievement in vital learning skills. The statistics in student improvement in these skills from our 86 students who attended the program was staggering. Research is clear that there is a strong correlation between learning skills and student success in life and school. In summary, the skills that students build during these 3 weeks are invaluable to their education, their self-esteem, and essentially their success in life, which is our mission as a district.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Principal Sandy McInnes, who is Principal of TR Leger Adult Alternative Continuing Education and E-Learning. So he has a rather large portfolio under the TR Leger umbrella and certainly has been instrumental in the success and growth of our summer semester program for many years. And so I really feel that he is best placed, given his planning and the work he does with his staff, to speak directly to the success of the program.
Thank you, Superintendent Rudders, and through you, Mr. Chair, this is an opportunity to share great work of the staff from the summer semester program, and with the tremendous support of the communications department, they help us promote our summer semester program to the general public and to our students and to out-of-board students, as well as through our membership in the Ontario E-Learning Consortium. We also promote our summer semester program through consortium. As you can see, it's coordinated by the TR Leger School, and the programs are funded by the Ministry of Environment. Ministry of Education.
We'd like their money too.
I would like the environment too. So we have a grand total of 1,403 students with credit accumulation of 1,501, and that's a grand total including our online program, our co-op, and our cadet co-op. We have a total of 39 Reach Ahead online courses offered. They're all under the D2L course shell, and the courses all look the same. We've renovated them all for this past summer semester program so that both students and staff are looking at any one of our courses. The navigation of the programs all look the same, feel the same. We have tremendous staff total of 29 staff, 9 co-op teachers, and 12 online markers. And this year we had 1 face-to-face teacher. And as you can see in the summer semester 2019 program, the co-op, the cadet co-op, and the online program, they all start on July the 2nd. The online program finishes on July 29th with the regular co-op and cadet co-op programs going on, continuing on to the 9th. I'd also like to, under the development and leadership of Principal Gail Brandt-Terry, she created the face-to-face careers and civics course for this summer for the Indigenous youth. And that program was offered out of the CCVS school. They had a total of 6 students register and 6 students graduated. And I learned today that one of the students that's now currently in grade 9, they are promoting to all of the grade 8 students at CCVS that you need to take this program next summer. So the students are very proud in participating in that program. Also, we have a very tremendous, strong relationship with with Department of National Defense and Canadian Forces. And in our cadet program, we participate in the summer training centers across Ontario, including Ottawa, North Bay, Trenton, Borden, and Kingston. And we also participate in Quebec with the Saint Jean-sur-Richelieu Space and Science Program with cadet programs. So a strong and very healthy partnership. As you can see here, this is the 39 e-learning courses we offer. And from those, just to highlight some of the most popular programs, our OLC 4.0 course, 112 students. Our French programs, 2 of our French programs, Career Studies and Civics, they each had an enrollment of 110 students as well. Another very popular program this summer was our NBE, our English Contemporary First Nations program, with 71 students. And so our French programs have been extremely popular, and they were new, added to summer semester over the past 2 years. As you can see here, we have a grand total of the 1,403 students participating, with a total accredited accumulation for summer semester 2019 of 1,501. That includes regular co-op, cadet co-op, and the e-learning program. So when you look at benefits from cooperative education, students have the opportunity to test drive a career, to experience hands-on learning. And the other very beneficial thing is a lot of our students already have summer programs. So we also have many students participating not only in co-op, obtaining 1 to 2 credits, but also receiving payment through paid co-op. So that's a real attraction factor for students. So co-op broken down, you can see a regular co-op summer semester program, a total of 156 students with a credit accumulation of 271. Some students participate in 1 credit co-op or 2 credit program. We had 3 students this past summer obtain 3 credits in their summer semester program. And when you look at the cadet co-op program, we had a total of 182 students participating in the various sites in Ontario and in Quebec at Saint Jean-sur-Richelieu, with a grand total of 363 credits being obtained for the cadet co-op program. So benefits from summer semester e-learning, just to highlight a couple for you folks. Students take advantage of a peak time where they can grasp maximum knowledge within a minimal time period. Also, it's a great opportunity for students to basically carve out some extra time in their timetable for the upcoming school semester by taking a summer semester online program. And once again, too, for our grade 8 students doing the Reach Ahead program, so they begin September in high school already having achieved a grade 9 credit. What a great feeling for our students. And so you look at our e-learning credit accumulation. We have 1,059 students participating with 861 credits obtained. And you may ask, why would there be fewer students? Well, we have many students that participate in the career or civics program where they take half a credit program. We have increasing number, as I highlighted earlier, with students participating in the French careers or civics program taking a half credit. We also have the bridging math program, which is a half credit as well. So that accounts for the 861. And as I mentioned earlier, under the leadership of Principal Gail Brandt-Terry, She developed with her team a very, very successful program which was offered at CCVS. 6 students registered and 6 students successfully completed the program. And thank you for this opportunity to share some things with our summer semester 2019 program, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Trustees. Trustee McPherson and then Trustee Craig.
Thank you, through the chair. In reference to your slide on the cadet program, you reference 182 students and 363 credits. Those are not all Upper Canada students, I assume, or are they?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. You're correct. They are not all Upper Canada students. I can just break that down for you. We have for basically the number of out-of-board students participating in our cadet program, there would be 180 students that are out-of-board students participating in that program. And in the regular summer semester co-op program, there would be 3 students that are out-of-board students. The remaining students would be Upper Canada students.
Are there any lessons from the e-learning that could be transferable to our regular program? It seems that you had some success with the e-learning program. Would that be a fair statement?
So through you, Chair, yes, the summer semester online teacher marker programs that we offer, we also offer a portion of those programs throughout the school year from September to June through our continuous intake Con Ed online program.
Same personnel that are involved in it?
They're the same programs. Different teacher marketers would be hired throughout the school year from September to June.
AJ.
Chair. I'm a trustee and I'm also a parent that has benefited from both of the programs that you have offered through the summer co-op program and through the junior 1 to 3 summer 3-week program. Both of my children have participated in them, and as a parent, I did appreciate them immensely. My daughter did grow in her reading. She now is in grade 6 and reads full novels. And I highlight that in large part to the teachers she has during the school year, as well as the 3 weeks she spent for 3 summers in the program. She enjoyed it. It's a great additional learning opportunity in a small school setting where they not only get to have active fun, but different friends, different learning methods, where they all get together and they can also learn from each other, because you have grade 1 to grade 3, and depending on the size, could all be learning at the same time. So you have like buddy readers, and it creates a great partnership too with those students, because they can continue to go to school together when the school year starts. And my son, who did the summer online and summer co-op program, they were both beneficial. The only question I might have is for people that are very far away, or parents and students that are very far away from TR Léger, is there any form of transportation if they would have to go to TR Léger in the summer?
For all of the programs, with the exception of the face-to-face in the Cornwall campus at CCVS, they're all online opportunities. The only time there might be a requirement for some face-to-face would be in the preparation for co-op. Am I correct with that, Sandy?
Chair, that's the one. Is there any form of transportation that could potentially be offered to students that are maybe further from the board if their parents didn't drive them to TR Léger? Through you, Chair?
That's certainly something I think it's worth exploring if it's an identified need.
I have a number of questions. Anybody else? A number of questions.
Yes, I do, Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
In the summer face-to-face civics and careers for Indigenous youth, I'm just wondering, like, we only had, 6 students participate. And I'm just wondering, is this fully funded by the board? Is it funded in partnership with Akwesasne? How does this work?
Through you, Chair. We were fortunate to receive funding through ministry funding last year to support Indigenous education, and the opportunity that was provided in the summer was provided through that funding.
Thank you.
My question is this. I'm a parent in the Athens catchment area. I have one child at Pineview and one at Athens District. How do I get my kids involved in this? What are the logistics?
For clarification, Chair, could you say involved in this? Do you mean the summer learning program, grade 1, 2, 3, or summer semester? Or
I guess for the secondary student, it would be summer semester. For the elementary student, it would be the former.
So through you, Chair, in the spring, information is communicated throughout the system. Schools are provided with information to share with parents as well and with their school communities about these summer learning opportunities.
And through you, Chair, with regards to summer semester. So one of the first slides that we shared outlines a variety of ways that we communicate with schools, certainly directly through the school principal and the school guidance counselor, where there would be a Skype call to talk about what courses are being offered and the availability and the process for registering. We have a place on the website, summer semester, where you click on and you get all of the forums, the information you need for registering, announcements in schools, Facebook campaigns. So there's a direct link to this individual schools, and plus we push it out information on a continuous basis throughout the spring through our social media channels.
Thank you. My second question is with perhaps to Mr. McGuinness. With regard to French second language, or any of the courses offered online, how do students comply, or how do teachers comply with the guidelines with regard to oral communication and conversation?
Through you, Chair. So basically, the program is delivered online, and it's through. There's no oral component per se in the program. It's all online based. So really, to answer your question, there is no oral. It's basically focused on composition and vocabulary through the program, and it's a very good question, but there is no oral component. Our programs do indeed follow the French curriculum. Would be Superintendent Rudders. Anything else to add to that one?
Well, through you, Chair, the other piece of that is that the courses we're offering are content-based courses. Yes. They're not the French language instruction, the FSL or FSF. They're careers and civics, for example. So they're very much content-based and
just to add to that, Chair, as well, one of the programs that we're offering is the HBS4U, Challenge and Change in Society. So that's a grade 12 program which is focusing on content, challenge, and change. And that has been really popular from the standpoint that it gives our students the opportunity to pick up a 4U French program towards their certificate.
First of all, I've been out of education for a while and absolutely amazed at the program that's offered. And I have to be very supportive of staff that are involved in it. It certainly is a new form of education in that it's another semester, and gives kids a chance to get ahead and make up and to get some courses that they might not be able to get. I see great opportunity here. In trying to listen to some of our staff and our educators, as principal just yesterday, and a group of parents recently in South Dundas, where Mr. McAllister also attended the meeting, I was surprised at the resistance of some very good parents to the idea of the ministry doing co-op, making it compulsory that students have to do 4 courses online. I thought it'd be pretty well accepted. There doesn't seem to be amongst those people. My question is, if somebody takes a summer semester course online, is there any support for it? Is there any way that these online courses can be even appealing to that group of students who say, I'm not very good at learning an online course, to appeal to that bunch of people that seem to be resisting this. And that would be one of the ways that they could meet one of these 4 courses. I see it trying to extend to those people that are weak in that kind of method of learning. Okay, my question.
Good question. Good question.
There, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
you have indeed. Who would like to take a crack at that one?
Through the chair.
Superintendent Rutter.
Through you, Chair. So our summer semester program is modeled on the continuing education e-learning model, which is a marker model. And our success rates are quite high for it, but I believe that's associated with the students who are choosing to sign up for the courses in that semester. Where we're looking at developing the opportunities for students who may not necessarily as a first choice gravitate to online learning, that really ties tightly and nicely to what we're trying to accomplish through the district-wide timetable with the potential for synchronous e-learning courses where there's a teacher during the same period every day at the other end of the computer talking to the students, working with the students, developing the course content with the students and dialoguing. And so you've got a daily check-in at the same time in the same period every day. And so we hope that that's going to be the promise of the synchronous model of e-learning within the district-wide timetable.
Thank you.
Ray and Trustee Pettigier. No, Trustee Pettigier.
Chair, my question would be for the summer semester online courses. The courses that are offered in French, to appeal to our parents that are more francophone than anglophone, that have chosen maybe to send their kids to the Upper Canada District School Board to learn a second language is English. Do the courses in French, are there questions all in French? Can they follow the online component in French? Or is it only in English and then the course materials in French?
For you, Chair, in both French and English. And the other piece too, if we have certain students, we can make accommodations and modifications to the program dependent upon what the students are really looking for with regards to the depth of French. And we added 2 years ago, French programs were not offered in the summer semester online program. And listening to our parents and feedback, we created the 5 programs, and we continue to build upon the program offerings. And so we'll definitely continue with the depth of French. And then going back to Chair's comment earlier too about the oral component, we've had conversation around looking at the opportunity and ability to offer that through online. So those are things that we're always looking at. 2 years ago, we didn't have the 5 French programs, and there is popularity, as we can see from the enrollment numbers. And also, to just comment on the student success rate for summer semester, our summer semester 2019 student success rate was 92%. So we continue to renovate and update our programs based on both student and instructor feedback each year. So that's how we continue to improve. It's based on that feedback.
Jacobs.
Yes, through the chair. With these numbers going up, the total number of students, how many more would we be able to accommodate, whether it's on the current resources, just for 2019?
So the number of students drives the number of instructors or markers. So really, we open the registration process each spring, and Principal McInnes and his team are actively monitoring the numbers per course and per credit, and they ensure that we post for the number of teacher markers that we require for the enrollment we have by students. So from that perspective, I don't see a limitation in terms of the continued growth of the program. I'll ask Principal McInnes for his input on that. Would you agree?
Through you, Chair, I agree completely with Superintendent Rutters. The number of staff are driven by the student interest in enrollment.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, Trustee Swan.
I just have another question, and I know my own daughter took a couple of the courses online, but I'm curious as to the funding. Are we funded based on how many students? Are we funded based on just having these courses? How is that working? And I guess just a secondary, because it's kind of tied in, is it was my understanding that all the teachers that are teaching these courses or marking these courses are not necessarily UCDSB teachers. Am I correct?
Chair, I'll answer part one of the question. Yes, we are funded based on student enrollment from the Ministry of Education. And part two, the teacher markers and the co-op teachers are Upper Canada staff.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I want to thank you, four of you, all of you, for your presentation. It seems to me that we have a hidden gem here that we should be actively promoting as much as we could. And we will. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to item 12.03 for an update on student transportation matters and priorities. I would welcome Ms. Janet Murray and Mr. Mark Gossett from STAO. And trustees, you have already received Trustee Danaher and my report, but we thought it would be educational and informational if you would hear information from the horse's mouth, so to speak. No insult. That's you.
He's a horse.
All right, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to come and present some information from the transportation perspective. We've tried to put together some information for you tonight that we think would probably reflect the types of questions that you as trustees would likely be receiving. And so hopefully some of the context we can provide to you will help you in answering some of the questions that you receive from the folks that you serve directly in your communities. Something we thought it might be important to speak to that hasn't received a whole lot of coverage in our particular area, but is a reality, is the bus driver shortage. So across Ontario, we are experiencing bus driver shortages, as are most of the school boards across the region. We have been very fortunate in that these have largely been mitigated in that we have not experienced any interruption to service as a result of our shortage. We are, however, experiencing a shortage. A lot of this is due to the excellent work of the bus operators who are reallocating staff internally to ensure that routes are covered. Very often you will find that most of the staff employed by a bus company are in possession of a B license and able to operate a school vehicle, and as such, as needed, they're allocating their office staff, and their managers and the owners themselves are often driving the route. So we're fortunate in that we have not experienced an interruption to service, but it's important for you to know, I think, that there are nevertheless implications to service. One of those implications is the fact that you might be hearing from some of your folks that they're seeing a different person behind the wheel of the vehicle service. That relates directly to the driver shortage. So you don't necessarily always have a consistent person behind the wheel. What they're doing is they're shifting and reallocating staff to ensure that the route is covered. Does that have implications? It does indirectly. It has some implications to the fact you don't necessarily have the same person getting to know their ridership and getting to understand some of the needs of their specific ridership and some of the potential safety implications. There's also another sort of indirect implication, although it doesn't necessarily impact on home to school transportation, but there's less of a pool of drivers to service extracurricular events and charters. So you may find or hear that some of your schools are struggling to cover those because all of the bus company staff are allocated to servicing home to school transportation. So by and large, we have been very fortunate, but we are in the throes of a bus driver shortage. We do, as STAO, report to the Ministry of Education regularly as relates to what our driver pool looks like, as do all of the consortia across Ontario. And MOE has been very central in assisting us to connect with the Ministry of Transportation to express some of the things that we're hearing from bus operators about what creates a delay in a bus driver getting a license, things related to delays in police checks and delays in having medicals approved. And so we have sort of developed a nice fulsome relationship that allows us to have some of this dialogue with the hopes of expediting some of those processes and mitigating the shortage as much as we possibly can. It's a tough job and it's difficult to find people to do it. We will continue to monitor coverage as the winter months approach, and these are real things that impact coverage in the bus industry, things like hunting leave and sick time and winter vacation, and these are all things that will make it more and more difficult to have somebody behind the wheel of the school bus over the coming months. So we will continue to monitor, but again, we have been fairly fortunate in not having an interruption to service related to the shortage. Something that might be of interest to you as well as a ride time report. So the STIO Board of Directors approves a percentage of total riders, a tolerable level of riders who would ride over the 60-minute mark or 1 hour. Our goal is to keep the ride time below an hour where we can, but we tolerate up to 3% of riders riding over that time. So what we've provided for you here is a snapshot of 18-19 as well as a snapshot of 19-20, recognizing that routes are still stabilizing and will continue to stabilize until the end of October and into early November. So as you can see, we had 0.89% of riders in 18-19 riding over 60 minutes. We're slightly above that right now at 1.14% of ridership, recognizing we're still well under that 3% goal. And routes continue to stabilize. So our hope and vision is that number will continue to decrease. Give you a sense of what the average ride time is. For Canada, it's 21.7 minutes, currently slightly above our average last year of 20.2 minutes. Again, though, routes do continue to stabilize. Give you a sense of what these numbers represent. This does include special education transportation, which sometimes tends to be a little bit longer in duration because sometimes we're transporting to farther off regions to ensure that a student can access the programming that is best suited to them. And this also does reflect and include location students, what we call location students. And those are students for whom the ride would be in excess of 1 hour, even as the crow flies. So all of those numbers are included in this. And again, these numbers will continue to stabilize through the end of October and probably into November as well. Vehicle capacity utilization. We wanted to chat with you about this just a little bit because I think sometimes there's a bit of a conception that there are half-empty buses riding around the countryside, and we wanted to speak to you about the efforts that we have made to make the best utilization of the vehicles that we have in our fleet as possible. So the 2017-18 numbers that you see up there, those are the numbers that come from the STIO annual report, which reflect the three main sizes of vehicles. We didn't talk about vans here because the ridership fluctuates so greatly in those. But your three main vehicles are your 20-passenger vehicles, your 54-passenger vehicles, and the big bus, which is the 72-passenger vehicle. In 17-18, we were utilizing them to 92% for the 20s, 71% and 83% for the 72s. Now, this again is a snapshot in time at October 4th, 2019, and more stabilization will continue to occur through this month. But we are currently using our 20-passenger vehicles to 100% of capacity, our 54s to 78%, and our 72-passenger vehicles to 94% capacity. So we've made significant gains in our capacity utilization. Sometimes we can't use a vehicle to its full capacity because of timing constraints. So simply by adding additional load time to a vehicle, by putting more students on it, means that we couldn't service a multiple route. So we're not going to achieve that 100% for everything regardless. And neither do we necessarily operationally or strategically always want to. In an ideal world, what we strive to do is maintain about 10% available capacity where we can to maintain operational flexibility. And in doing that, that allows us to accommodate throughout the school year to a number of different things that regularly occur. Things like students who are in emergency or exceptional circumstances who need a ride on a school vehicle that we want to be able to accommodate without having to add a bus. Students who move amongst schools and are eligible for transportation, we need to and are obliged to transport them as well, and allowing a little bit of operational capacity allows us to do that without adding hardware. New eligible riders, and another issue of probably continuing presence in our day-to-day operational world is behavioral and student management issues, which can sometimes be remedied by our ability to shift riders on a school bus, having a little bit of capacity to allow us to move humans around, or to add support staff to a vehicle, like a monitor, for example, as appropriate. And this is why we strive to achieve that 10%. Another piece of information, I think you're probably aware, but in case you get questions of this nature, is that we do have processes in place at STIO to allow for non-eligible riders to become eligible to access a seat on the bus due to safety, medical, or exceptional circumstances. So we do have robust processes in place where if there's a safety issue that requires a student who would not otherwise be eligible to get on a bus, that they can come through our processes at STIO and apply for a seat on the bus. And where there's a hazard identified, they would access a seat accordingly. Same with medical issues that may preclude a student, for example, from walking to school. We do have a robust process. Of course, we want to ensure that any medical accommodations that are made on the school vehicle are also replicated at the school. So that's a process where there is some dialogue between STIO and the school. And then there are a certain number of exceptional circumstances which sometimes occur, usually things like family crises or short-term circumstances that would warrant a student who would otherwise be ineligible to access a seat on the school bus as well. We're also actively promoting active travel and the idea that there are other means to get to school other than the big yellow school bus. We're working with schools actively around the creation of what we call walking school buses, and sort of almost helping schools to create a walking route to school where they would sort of create a walk, identifying a safe walking path to school, which certainly supports students who are living in the walk zone and may not be eligible for transportation. And we're also working actively with local health units around promoting that. There's many active walking school buses in the UCDSB right now, and we have been throughout the region to promote those and participate in them. And of course, there are significant health benefits associated with bookending your learning day with a bit of physical activity. And so the health unit, of course, is very much interested in promoting that component of active travel as well. The bell time change update. So you may recall that we were here some time ago to discuss the implementation of a district-wide bell time change. That's occurring over 3 phases, which are sort of captured in the map in front of you here. Phase 1 has been implemented at the 2019-2020 school year in what we call the North Zone, which is sort of this yellowish zone in the Lanark, Smith Falls area. We have implemented the change in that area with the support of ongoing communication strategy, which was implemented in concert with both of the school boards that we service. That implementation has been quite successful. The projected North Zone efficiencies that STIO had projected as part of this change are on target to be achieved, with potential to exceed projections. At this juncture, we have removed in excess of about 40 vehicles from the road without loss of service. So we will continue to implement and communicate and refine throughout the course of this school year, bringing us into phase 2, which will occur next year in the east-west zone, which we've called it. We have, of course, now a fulsome communications plan, which we've developed, which we will continue to utilize as our foundation for implementation for phase 2. The only slight tweak I think that we would make to that, and we're just beginning to discuss that now, is our hope would be, now that we've got that wonderful foundation, with earlier notice case, the routings in that or very good success in hosting communication community information sessions in the impacted communities for the North Zone. And I think that we would again continue to do that for the East-West Zone and of course for the subsequent zone thereafter. It was an opportunity for folks to come out publicly and ask the questions that they had to board staff and to STEO staff and to daycare providers as to what the implications to them might be as relates to the bell time changes. And because the East-West Zone is a little bit bigger, where we held 2 sessions for phase 1, we would probably look at holding 3, even 4 sessions, I would say, for phase 2. And what we may look at doing as well as part of this sort of full transparency model of communication is we would also begin our preliminary communications to the South Zone stakeholders, the folks in Cornwall who aren't going to experience the change for 2 years, but nevertheless, with a vision to communicate as clearly and transparently as possible to begin that communication as soon as we possibly can for those folks. And we thought it might be important, again, just to remind everybody of the best way to get in touch with us and some of the resources that are available for your folks to access transportation information. Probably our key resource that people utilize is the STEO website at steo.ca. Taking a little snapshot of some of the tools, the self-serve tools that are available to your folks by visiting the website, which means they can actually go on the site and with their students' proprietary information, they can figure out what school they're eligible to attend, what their transportation eligibility might look like. And with the OEN number at hand, they can actually find out what their bus stop location and pickup would be as well. And they can do that on a self-serve basis, although we are certainly happy to help them if they have any difficulties. We do have a page on the website allocated specifically to information about bell time changes. Our philosophy throughout the communication of bell time changes was that, while change can certainly be challenging and difficult, and sometimes difficult to receive, what we wanted always to be was above reproach in the fact that we took every opportunity to communicate the change as transparently as possible. And so there's lots of information about bell time changes through that resource. It will be probably in the next 2 weeks or so be updated again now to begin to speak about what's going to happen in the East-West Zone as well. General inquiries, of course, can go to transportation@steo.ca, and we have a main telephone number with a toll-free option as well. There is an app, a free app that folks can access, which will become more and more a hot ticket app as we approach inclement weather season and people want to know about bus delays and cancellations. That can be downloaded for free for folks to receive push notifications specific to their children's transportation information. A parent portal can also be accessed through our website. We actively communicate information to people on Facebook and Twitter and have been happily communicating this week about School Bus Safety Week and today, which is School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. So if you haven't thanked a bus driver for the amazing work that they do, please make a point to do so before midnight. We can help you find one if you need one. And because of the volume of communication that varies throughout the course of the year, we do have additional resources available to folks during startup, where we actually work with the call center to help us with the call volume. We made use actually of that call center during our bell time implementation in the spring, where we had them available to answer questions for folks. And in fact, we actually had them do a call out to any family that was experiencing a bell time change of 20 minutes or greater, 30 minutes or greater. So we've actively made use of all the resources at hand to ensure that we are as clear and transparent in our communication as possible. And again, we have some additional resources, including what we call the inclement weather hotline, available during inclement weather season for folks to call in for information about whether buses are running or whether they're canceled. Thank you again for the opportunity. If you have any questions for Mark or myself, we would be happy to.
Trustee Cram, Trustee Parisien.
Thank you, Chair. Seeing we've gone through one phase, Trustee McPherson and my zone's been the one you've used as the guinea pig. What has been the easiest transition? What has been the most surprise? And what has been the biggest challenge?
We haven't had a lot of problems in the north. Less than probably 5% of our inquiries came from the north, but there's been very little I think the biggest issue I've had in the north would be my child's going to get home in the dark. And that's probably about 3 phone calls I've taken on that question. But it's actually been very good.
I have 2 questions. My first question is regarding your appeal process. If parents are have sent in an appeal, the decision based on either they've requested to drive their child to a bus stop so their child could attend a particular school, and they're going through that appeal process, how long does that appeal process take? Because I have one family that's still in the appeal process.
The initial request that goes to the appeal process receives an automated response immediately to inform the family that the response has been received. A further follow-up typically occurs within the period of 3 days to a week. Where a person might be in that process longer is when there's extenuating circumstances, where the circumstances have changed, or where perhaps the initial appeal was denied and they have come back to the table with additional information and we've engaged in additional communication, and sometimes we loop in a superintendent for a little bit of insight and guidance as well. But I would say we have 0 backlog on the appeal process. That is a process that's overseen internally by 3 individuals. Mark, from an operational perspective, our manager of safety and training, or Kirk, who also looks at the safety and hazard implications, and I look at every response before it is shared to ensure that the big picture has also been considered. I would say an immediate response on first inquiry, 3 to 5 days for the initial response, and it would only extend longer again where there's mitigating circumstances.
Question is regarding the bell time change. Being the location that is furthest from Stayo and Ford, I would want to make a recommendation that you guys would travel as far east for the phase 2 if there's going to be any public information, because we're shared busing, so we share with the Catholic board as well. So we're more than just 3 schools, there's 4, or anyways, it's a large territory, and I know there'd be a lot of parents that have questions because a lot of them do travel far distances for work, so they travel into Ottawa, and which is already, so they're already leaving their children for a period of time.
We know those were very well received when we offered them in the 2 communities we did, which was it made a little more sense because it was a bit more condensed, and those were 2 centralized locations. But we've already had those conversations that we need to be fully.
Trustee McPherson, that's what I am when I'm here tonight. A comment. Congratulations. When you decided to implement the change in bell times in the Western region, I was a little nervous. I have to give you credit. It came off absolutely unbelievably smooth. Just as an example, the first morning at SFDCI, every bus was in and out there in 8 minutes. It was just a constant movement of buses and dropping off students. I didn't have any complaints, not a single one. The year before, when we started messing around with walk times, my phone rang off the hook, so to speak. So I think you could carry this process forward as we move into the other regions of the board. My hope that you meet with the same success. But I do have one question. How much use is actually made of the GPS systems on the buses? Like, I know that if a bus is running late, there's a process for informing parents. Is that taken off the GPS information, or is it a form of reporting from the schools or the dispatchers?
In that, through you, Chair. Thank you, by the way. That certainly means a lot, your observation, and certainly with your experience in the industry, the context that you bring to that discussion, it is very much appreciated. As relates to use of GPS, the posting of delays is not a function of GPS. That's a function of reporting from the bus company. Where there is a delay in excess of 10 minutes, we do ask the bus company to go through the bus planner system and to post that so it can be consumed publicly so parents are aware. GPS is used quite frequently. We actually utilize GPS from an audit perspective to look for efficiencies. To look for efficiencies, to ensure that if there are opportunities to refine a route, or if there's excess mileage, that we do ensure that every route has been GPSed at least one time throughout the course of the year. Also for safety purposes, to ensure that GPS reveals a lot more than I ever knew, certainly in terms of is a school bus, for example, stopping at a railway crossing and opening its doors. So there's a lot to be learned from those GPS audits. And I mean, even this week, we've looked at a situation where we had a parent concerned about sporadic pickup times, suggesting that there was a real differential in what their morning pickup looked like by as much as maybe 20-25 minutes. So our ability to go in and GPS a route for the entirety of a 2-week period of time, in this case, revealed that that was not the case. There had been one morning where there was a delay that was not, to be fair, posted and should have been, but we are able to see whether the length of the route, whether the route is following all safety protocols, and whether it is sporadic in its pickup and drop.
Yes. How is the response to the active travel coming along?
Question. It's a bit of a learning curve, I think. I mean, I do think that we have a lot of parents who drop off at school and they're comfortable with that dynamic, and it's certainly become probably the predominant method of transportation, or one of the more predominant methods of transportation for children in the walk zone. But where you begin to get the schools engaged in the process, we've worked with parent councils to get them engaged in the process. It begins to communicate the viability of walking to school and the benefits of it. So I think we're probably at the infancy of making this a real viable opportunity for people, but I have certainly seen a much greater buy-in this year, even over last year when our efforts were quite fledgling around having people sort of buy into that idea that walking to school is not only viable, but perhaps actually really, really beneficial.
I think it's a great name. It puts a good spin on it. I like the idea because we're looking out for the health of the children, especially in the communities I come from, where diabetes and things like that is almost inevitable at some stages of life. But with something like this, it puts that sort of a healthy spin on being able.
Thank you. I have a question with regard to the challenge of communications that you receive in late August and first week of September. Normally there's a crunch there, and that is one of the areas where parents express concerns. Could you elaborate on the number of calls that you get and the challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's significant, right? I think our biggest call volume day, I think we were in excess of 1,500 calls, I think, in a day. So we are a group of 18, so that's a lot for us. And of course, 9 of those folks are planners, and we don't want them answering those calls if they don't have to. We want them putting as many little humans safely on school buses as they can for the first day of school. So we do make use of additional resources during that time, because we do believe that service and prompt responses to families during that time is mission critical and very, very important, and that we're representing you folks in that capacity. And so we need to let folks know that we're responsive. We bring in about 4 summer staff, and we put them what we call the hot room, and we have them assist in answering call volume in that regard. And we also make use of a call center to help sort of mitigate that kind of robust increase in calls during that period of time. And of course, we are actively developing those self-serve resources that are available on STEO's website, your ability to find out your eligible school, your bus pickup time and drop-off time, because that's very often the nature of the questions folks are asking. So we're trying to empower people to get their own information. It's been a process, but I think utilizing all of those supplementary resources that we have at hand, we were on top of it this year. And as I said, even in the review process, which can be a bit unwieldy, we don't have any backlog in inquiries.
I'd just like to thank you both, Mark and Janet, for coming to this meeting tonight. As you know, I've worked with you now for 6-7 years, and I think that you and your team at STAO are doing a very fine job in terms of transportation for the students in this board. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Trustees, we are now heading to 12:04, which is the report of the student trustee. And before I turn this over to Kelford, I just want to point out that student senators met as a Senate last Friday afternoon, or Friday morning and afternoon, and they were ably led by student trustee Bolton. So I'm going to now turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you. So, as the chair stated, the student senate met last Friday, October 18th, and within that we had many discussion topics. Some of the hot topics that we discussed were the Character Always Awards. So we found that to be a very wide array of topics, and within that we broke it down to many definitions. One that truly stuck to me that defined a person of character always was maintain good character through hard times no matter the situation. So with that, we truly want that to stick and resonate within all our students across the board. So that was one of our goals. And a few of our other highlighted goals that my Senate had set this year was environmental projects. With that, we see many environmental projects being implemented throughout the school board, such as green walls, composting, and many recycling initiatives. Another issue that ties into that is many schools are having issues with recycling. And not just necessarily recycling, but the disposal of any waste that could be handled in a much better way. So, with that, we have a few things that we would like to add on to. And then another hot topic was computers or technology or access to equipment. So a lot of the senators had concerns with the upcoming proposal of online courses. Soon, all students are going to have to partake in online courses. And with that, we have seen lots of issues with access to technology. That was a hot topic, especially with lots of our libraries being unstaffed currently. So that seemed to be a true issue that was widespread around the Senate. Besides that, we discussed Senate branding and merchandise. So I gave the task to my senators to design or come up with any creative ideas on how we could brand or market us as a Senate. The most hot topic was creating a jacket that would represent our schools, all the senators, and the Upper Canada District School Board, and our Senates as a whole. On top of that, pretty much a good summary. But if any of you would like to read what we did discuss, I have a copy and would be more than willing to send it to all. Questions?
Thank you.
Of course.
Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Through the chair, the recycling initiatives, were any ideas discussed that we don't currently have?
One that was brought up was with hospitality programs. So we often have an excessive amount of waste, and how we handled that was just throwing it away. So other alternatives with that were donating it or composting it and creating green initiatives. So that was one of them, if that answers the
question. You mentioned about the e-learning, and I'm going to bring this document up about the students, because it's mentioned prominently in there, the students' vision. They have real concerns, and Colton's been at a provincial meeting just recently, and I hope that their perspective through Colton comes back to this board at every opportunity. It's a wonderfully written report, succinct, to the point. It mentions all kinds of issues that we have talked around to use. It's their perspective I very much want to hear more of. That's just my comment more than anything, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Barry.
The issue of YouTube, you make reference to right? Chair, did the report make reference to the libraries not being open or not accessible? Could Colton expand on that, please?
To the chair. Absolutely. So one of the big issues was with our technology lifespan, it is 4 years across the board. And many of my senators were saying that within their school, their only technology that they have at their disposal is technology that's been within their school beyond that 4-year time period. So that itself presents an issue. Another issue was all of our libraries or learning commons are currently not staffed. So that was a heavy issue, especially with students that don't have access at home or at school all the time to technology. That was a very big issue and very big concern for students with their education.
Sarah, I was wondering, access at home, because some of the rural areas don't have Wi-Fi or whatever, or is it machinery? Is it physical beasts like this?
To the chair, it's a joint effort of the both.
And the director was at the meeting and will undoubtedly took notes and will bring concerns forward.
Are there any concerns of the students regarding policy 303 with electronic devices?
To be honest, I got lots of mixed feedback on that. So, of course, we have the odd student like myself that takes their notes on their computer and they understand the point of the policy, but it truly didn't seem to be too heavily contested. Students seemed to be quite accepting of the topic and they understood the reason for it. And especially with examples such as Carleton right now, they have implemented the technology in their lectures. So they felt that it was preparing them and that it could be quite useful. It was quite well received.
For you, Chair.
Go ahead.
You touched on it, and Colton brought it up, and I'm just wondering, when will the director be coming back to us, or who will he be coming back to on the implication of the non-availability of learning commons based on our budget decisions? Thank you.
Trustee Swan, can we deal with that at a different time? I think that's out of order in terms of this particular report. Okay.
Well, I've been told I'm out of order, so okay.
Nicely. I have a question for you, Colton. The director led a discussion and a presentation on the possible revamping of the Character Always Award, or a program which is very vibrant, especially at our elementary level. Would you care to comment on what some of the directions were at the student level for the secondary level?
In what's through the chair?
What were their ideas?
So many of the ideas to encourage it within their schools were such things as monthly award systems or just student to student kind of awareness. Just so the big issue was people felt that one person could be a good person, another person could be a good person, but if there's no validation, are they truly being the person that the school board wants to see within them? So a big thing that they would like to see is just a little sense of validation. That was a big topic. And they don't expect anything spectacularly large, such as a massive trophy, but just even at a monthly assembly, do some form of recognition for a student that in particular stood out and represented the character that the Upper Canada District School Board wants to see within all of it.
Nominating people kind of reverberated with me when I heard that. I thought that was a way for peers to give someone who they thought was special, I don't know.
Through the chair. Absolutely. We see it a lot. There are so many teachers to so many students. And with that, there's truly not enough time in a day for one to recognize every single student within a school and mention that they are being the character that we want to see represented. So we believe that with our peers being the people that can nominate, it just allow for a lot more widespread recognition among schools.
Thank you very much, Trustee Colton. You presented a very comprehensive report, and you led a good session, and we hope the next one will be equally fruitful. Thank you. Item 13, there is no agenda items under other business. 14, report to the board from private session. At its committee of the whole meeting in private session October 9, 2019, 3 legal and 1 personnel matter were discussed. One recommendation was brought forward to the board, and I have a motion moved by Trustee McPherson, seconded by Trustee McRae, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve resolution number PS October 09-002, carried in committee of the whole private session under agenda item D4, October the 9th, 2019. Trustees, would you please cast your ballot? That motion carries. Item 15, no agenda items under action items. No agenda items under non-action items and correspondence. And there is one information item which has been filed here. On the information item is the Freedom of Information Quarterly Report for information only. And unbelievably, I think we are ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Trustee Danaher, Trustee Berry, that the regular meeting and public session of the Upper Canada District School Board, October 23rd, 2019, be adjourned at 8:22 p.m. and the next board meeting is scheduled for November the 13th, 2019. Please cast your ballot, I guess. All in favor, hands up. Motion carried. Thank you very much, trustees.